Order, please. Let us resume proceedings. Witnesses, you will now retake the stand. Ja, und damit herzlich willkommen zurück zu The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Wir haben im letzten Part dann doch noch einmal die Kurve bekommen und konnten die Juroren, zumindest 4 davon, überzeugen, wieder für nicht schuldig zu sprechen. Und dadurch geht die Verhandlung jetzt in die nächste Runde. I presume you heard the defense counsel's summation examination. Oh, yeah, Governor. I did, Gov, I did. Mr. and Mrs. Skulkin. This is going to be hard work. Earlier in this trial, you gave the following testimony about your actions after you entered Winniebanks. Well, it was bedlam soonest, weren't it? It was nicht, it was. It didn't even have time to pull me dukes out my Lucy lockets. However, that was a lie. You brothers. On the night in question, you rifled through the items on the victim's counter. We never done nothing of the sort. Oh, do you figure that out? You will now give formal testimony once again. You will tell the court precisely what happened on the night in question, and this time you will tell the truth. Each lie that passes your lips serves to increase the severity of your punishment. And that, gentlemen, may deal a crushing blow to your chances of ever seeing the light of day again. A thought worth pondering, perhaps. Say no more, Gov. We hear ya. Well, squeak. We will peach. Okay, dann hören wir mal an, was die beiden jetzt hier zu sagen haben. Alright, we did knock a few things over, but we weren't rifling for nothing. It was when we heard the gunshot, see, made us both jump and all that stuff went flying. No, me, it didn't. Give me a fright, we was thinking the shooter come out the door and get us next. We stuck everything back where we found it and scrappered straight in the black. We couldn't have shot the pawnbroker, see, we never even had a chance, did we? So you admit to the defense's accusation. You did indeed ransack Mr. Winniebank's countertop on the night in question. Not ransack, Governor. That's right, Natch. That's right. It's more like we tidied it up. Sorry. By their own admission, these brothers entered the pawnbrokery under dubious circumstances. However, they panicked and fled on hearing the gunshot, having first made good their mess. The way you say it, we hardly sound like rocks at all. We don't, Nash, we don't. Can't they make us sound a bit more cutthroat? It can't just be coincidence that these men showed up at Winniebanks that night. There's more to their testimony than meets the eye, I'm sure of it. Ich würde gerne mal nachfragen, was passiert ist, als sie den Schuss gehört haben. So, It was when we heard the gunshot, see, made us both jump and all that stuff went flying. So, what are you saying is the sound of the gunshot shocked you so much you knocked all those things off the counter? Well, it shocked one of us that much, yeah. This bag of nerves needs to learn to keep his shirt on. Look, it was loud, alright? Believe me, that granny would have woken up at that bang. Oh, ups, ich wollte nicht mich umgucken. Big proof, screamed like a blooming baby and fell over on the counter. He knocked over a lot of books, a candlestick, and some skullwood nut. That got tangled in some marionette. Wood knocked over a picture frame. Who knocked them scales on the floor? You've really mastered working quietly then. What a racket. Me granny would have been scared back into a grave at a glitter like that. So I'm sure the gunshot took you by surprise. And then some, I mean, it was quite as a mouse, and then all of a sudden, BAM! Inspector Gregson, do you have something to add? Like I keep saying, I don't appreciate being lumped in with these scoundrels. No, something to add about their testimony. You seem to react just now at what Mr. Skulkin said. Did it make you think of something? It's probably nothing, of course. I wouldn't even bother to mention it, only, well, the fact is, cases don't get solved if you ignore the little details. How about you just tell us what's on your mind? As you know, we brought these fellas into the yard for question last night, and the statement they gave then told a slightly different story to what they are saying now. Did it? You claimed you heard the victim shout something out before the gunshot. Might have, does ring a bell now you mention it. Granted, it's only a minor detail, but still. I can't help feeling like perhaps you've been a bit sloppy with your testimony here, fellas? If I discover the witness's testimony has been any more sloppy than it has hitherto proven to be, I shall be forced to bring the very harshest punishment to bear against them. That's it, yep, it's all coming back to me now. Then speak. Supplement your testimony with whatever details have miraculously returned to your questionable mind, sirs. Right you are, Guff. Just before the gunshot, we heard the voice yelling out, "Gimme that gun." Just before the gunshot, we heard a voice yelling out, "Gimme that gun?" Moment. Wo sind die Bilder? Das ist das Bild von... Just before the gunshot, we heard a voice yelling out, "Gimme that gun." Moment, aber das kann doch gar nicht passen. Moment. Er ist doch... Mr. Winniebank wurde doch von hinten erschossen, oder? Ne, das waren die Representation Papers. Wo ist der Autopsiebericht? Hier. Single bullet wound in upper half of victim's back. No other visible signs of trauma. Das heißt, er wurde von hinten erschossen. Also... Oder denke ich jetzt falsch? Oder... Okay, ne, ist nicht richtig. The witness's last statement is clearly at odds with this piece of evidence. Ja, anscheinend nicht. I'm sorry, counsel, but I fail to see the connection. Oh. And for heaven's sake, would you kindly desist from that wide-eye panic-stricken look you are wont to wear? Aber irgendwas ist trotzdem komisch damit. Moment. But it's the only panic-stricken look I know. Irgendwas... passt damit nicht. Just before the gunshot we heard a voice yelling out, "Give me the gun." Okay, ich frag mal kurz nach. Es kann ja auch sein, dass ich gerade falsch denke. So in fact you heard the voice and the gunshot almost simultaneously? We did, Goof, we did. Although, I suppose if you're being honest, we are the kind of wavering voice before the yell and all. If you don't wanna get shot, give me that gun. Kind of thing. A career in action acting tragically missed. Es kann auch sein, dass ich gerade komplett falsch denke, weil es leider ein paar Tage her ist, dass ich den letzten Part aufgenommen habe. And where were the voices coming from? Could you tell? Of course we could. From the other side of the door behind the counter it was. From the storeroom where the victim was found dead. And the voice you heard, it was that of the victim, Mr. Winniebank. Oh, on me, Granny's life, of course it was. On his Granny's life, of course it was. So, that would mean... that you both knew Mr. Winniebank and the sound of his voice. So that would mean would? Would, Nash, would? Any ideas? Yes, counsel, indeed it would. We didn't know the geezer. I'm supposed to deny it when that bloke in all the fancy clobbers giving us the evil eye. If you value your lives, you will ensure your testimony is accurate and true. On me granny's life it is. On his granny's life it must be. It's a good job. His granny's dead. To summarize then, immediately after hearing the voice of the victim, you then hear the gunshot, causing you to stumble and upset the items on the counter, scattering them over the shop floor. You make it sound like we are clumsy. Don't forget, we tidied up after like good little boys. Anyway, the way I see it, the bloke who owned the place was holding a gun, so it should have just fired instead of yelling at the girl. The bloke who owned the place was holding a gun, so he should have just fired instead of yelling at the girl. Was? Aber Gina hatte doch die Waffe. Gina hatte doch die Waffe. Schon bevor die in den Raum gegangen sind. Das beweist doch das Foto, dass Gina die Waffe vorher schon hatte. Und Mr. Winniebank gedroht hatte damit. Sie wird ihm ja nicht die Waffe dann wieder zurückgegeben haben. So you're saying that on the night in question, the victim, Mr. Winniebank, was wielding a gun, is that correct? That's it, Goof. You've got the picture. Yes, Nash, he is, no question. And yet, photographic evidence obtained immediately after the incident clearly shows that Mr. Winniebank was not holding a firearm of any description. You would? Cordon Bennett, that ain't right. There can be no question that the victim's revolver was used in the incident. I would remind the court that Mr. Winniebank's gun was found at the scene. Not only was it identified as the murder weapon, but it was found in the accused's hand. Yeah, that Moltuler used the victim's own gun to finish him off. Give me that gun! Ja, ich habe erst gedacht, als er so geschrien hat, gib mir die Waffe, als ich das bei dem anderen Satz vorgelegt habe, dachte ich halt, ja, er wurde ja von hinten erschossen. Ja, und dann hat das halt für mich irgendwie keinen Sinn ergeben, dass er schreit, gib mir die Waffe, wenn er doch aber mit dem Rücken zu Gina gestanden hätte. Stay exactly where you are, right there. If the crime had taken place as you've so colorfully described in your testimony, it would give rise to an undeniable and significant inconsistency in the final moments you just acted out. Goodness, are you sure, counsel? You intrigue me, my learned friend, but let's see some evidence to support your claim. Where is the proof that demonstrates this inconsistency in the witness's portrayal of the victim's final moments? Das kann dann eigentlich nur der Autopsiebericht sein, weil es da ja drin steht. Single bullet wound in upper half of victim's back. According to their testimony, the witnesses claim to have heard a shout of "Give me the gun," followed by the gunshot. Indeed, with the two events happening almost simultaneously, or so we've been led to believe. Yes, that's right. Now, if that testimony is true, it would mean that at the moment of death, the victim and his attacker would have been facing each other. However, in the autopsy report, it clearly states that the victim died instantly after being shot from behind. Okay, also mein Gedanke war schon richtig. So as I stated before, there is an undeniable inconsistency in your testimony, Mr. and Mr. Skulkin. but it's the God's honest truth. It is, Nash, it is. When he was shot that night, the shopkeeper had a gun in his hand. We saw it with our own bleeding eyes. Did I hear you right just now? You actually saw Mr. Windybank holding a gun? Something like that might have slipped out. Ladies and gentlemen, you have all just heard the admission by these two witnesses that on the night in question they actually saw with their own eyes the victim wielding a gun, which can only mean that despite their testimony to the contrary, the Skulkin brothers must have encountered the victim in person. Witnesses, explain yourself at once. Well, the thing is, it weren't supposed to, It would seem that my previous warning fell on deaf ears. I made it quite clear that false witness would be the death of you. Am I to understand that you replaced the untruths of your original testimony with renewed lies? I'm ever so sorry, Governor. Truth is, see, Cut it out, Nash, cut it out. If we blab now, you know what he will do to us. He? What are they talking about? Let me make your position here perfectly clear. You will talk. There is no other option available to you. Proof, come on, the game's up. But he will have our guts for garters. In case it hasn't quite sunk in yet, no matter how hard you try to hide it, the truth will come out. On the night in question, it is now apparent that you brothers met face to face with the victim. I demand that you testify again to explain the precise circumstances under which this meeting took place. Do we have to? On pain of death. I suggest you make yourselves fully aware that this is your very last chance to tell the truth. Alright, so we just got inside the gov and if the sigh of relief when the geezer shot his mug. Give me that gun, he bellowed, and then he flew at us like he was possessed. I thought we'd had it. For an old geezer, the bloke was strong as an ox. He chucked me over the counter. I pulled my gun on him and then he elected through the door into the back room. We never had nothing to do with killing him. That's all what happened, I swear. So you're now telling us that moments before the victim was killed in the storeroom, you in fact encountered him in the main part of the shop. Well, yeah, sorry. Well, we find ourselves at an interesting juncture. This changes matters considerably. But honest, Governor, this time, Nash, this time, we ain't got nothing more to hide. Very well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. This is it. The moment I've been waiting for. Okay, ich würde sehr, sehr gerne, wo war das? Give me that gun, and then he flew at us like it was possessed. For an old geezer, the bloke was strong as an ox. I pulled my gun on him and then he elected through the door into the back room. We never had nothing to do with killing him, that's all what happened, I swear. You say you had nothing to do with it? Nothing at all. Nothing, goof, nothing. The old geezer went and shut himself in the back room, didn't he? Locked it, was from the inside. We know it was cause we tried to open it. But it's a decent door, that one. Good and strong, wouldn't budge an inch. So in the end, the situation remains unchanged. Inside the storeroom with the pawnbroker, there was only one other person. The sole person who could possibly have shot the victim, the accused, Miss Gina Lestrade. It wouldn't appear so. What say you to that, counsel? I don't know. Was there anyone else apart from Gina who could possibly have shot Mr. Windybank? Yeah. Mr. and Mr. Skulken. Wood. What's that look for? From the moment you admitted that you had encountered the victim face-to-face that night, the course of this trial changed completely. What is your point, my learned friend? The question we must answer is who could have shot Mr. Windybank, and that is the belief of the defense that the defendant is not the only possible answer at all. You have my attention. In that case, let us return to this plan of the premises. The victim was killed in the storeroom, which was locked from the inside. Those are the facts, so pray, what other possible answer to the question of who shot the man could there be? Counsel, you must now provide answers to the court in respect of two conundrums. Two, my lord? Twice as many chances to be right, maybe? Indeed, namely, from what location did the culprit shoot the victim, and furthermore, where was the victim at the time? Oh, okay, this is easy. Understood, my lord. Are you alright, Runo? I'm not entirely sure, but there's one thing I'm sure about. If I can prove that there's a credible new alternative to what happened, it would change Gina's prospects hugely. So now, time for some clarity. Show the court on this plan the answer to the questions posed by his lordship. If you believe someone else could have killed the victim, indicate from where the person could have fired the gun. Okay, ich muss R drücken. The defense believes that the culprit could have shot the victim from this location here. And an answer to the second question. Assuming the culprit fired from the location indicated, where was the victim at the time? The culprit shot the victim from outside the storeroom. Continue. Mr. Windybank died instantly from a bullet wound in his back. Looking at the stain of blood on the storeroom floor, it doesn't appear that the body was moved after death, which tells us that he was almost certainly shot while he was in the storeroom. However, the crucial point is where was the shooter when the fatal bullet was fired? So you're adamant that the shot was fired from outside the storeroom? Well, according to the Skulken brothers' earlier testimony, I pulled my gun on him and then elected through the door into the back room. If Mr. Windybank ran away through the door, we have to assume that the door was open at the time. It was at precisely that moment when the victim was fleeing for his life that these brothers had the perfect opportunity to shoot the man in the back once he was inside the storeroom. Come to think of it, do you remember what the prosecutor said at the start of the trial? Moving on to the findings of Scotland Yard's coroner, his report states that the bullet entered the body on a rising diagonal trajectory. It means the victim was likely shot by someone significantly shorter in height than himself. Poor man, shot while he was running as fast as he could to safety. He would have been leaning forward as he was running away. So even if the bullet was fired horizontally, it would still have entered his body on an upward trajectory. So the culprit isn't necessarily someone shorter than Mr. Windybank. I'm sure my learned friend can't have forgotten that the storeroom door was found closed and locked from the inside. You claim the victim was shot as he fled into the room. Do you also claim his corpse was dexterous enough to turn the key in the lock? But what if someone else locked the door? Yes, there is someone else who could have locked the storeroom door. Is that so? Very well then, counsel. Present your hypothesis to the court. In the scenario just described, the defense's assertion is that the victim was shot from outside the door. Outside the storeroom. In which case, who shot and locked the storeroom door from the inside? Das war Gina. Obviously, the person who locked the door was the only other person inside the storeroom at the time. The defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. That's absurd. You're suggesting that the accused deliberately engineered the sealed room? For what possible reason? Such actions would only serve to tighten the noose around her neck. I'm inclined to agree, I must say. Well, counsel. Yeah, that's a tricky one, that, isn't it? Naja, ich würde die Tür zumachen, wenn ich schon da drinnen war und dann höre ich einen Schuss und dann sehe ich vor mir einen Mr. Winniebank umfallen, würde ich versuchen, die Tür zu schließen, weil ja da draußen Mörder steht. Also, das ist doch eigentlich schon selbstverständlich, oder? Um dann irgendwie zu verhindern, dass die dann da reinkommen. Half-baked notions have no place in my courtroom, counsel. Remember that, please. But of course Ginny would have locked the door. It almost goes without saying, doesn't it? It does? Well, if I was Ginny in that situation, I know I would have locked the door as quickly as I could. I mean, those two burglars had just fired a gun in her direction, hadn't they? Oh yes, obviously. Before the two brothers arrived, Miss Lestrade and Mr. Winniebank were in the storeroom together. Now, I don't know what went on between them at that time, but at some point, Mr. Winniebank must have heard the intruders breaking into his shop and left the storeroom. Intruders, eh? That's Ostbruf. If your theory is correct, it would leave the accused alone in the storeroom. Yes, it would. Then, probably only moments later, the victim fled back through the storeroom door, hoping to escape danger. Hit in the back by the bullet, Mr. Winniebank fell to the floor where he was just inside the storeroom. And what we have to ask ourselves now is, what would the defendant have done in that moment? I see where you're going with this. Outside the storeroom was a terrifying killer who had just murdered Mr. Winniebank. As soon as that thought struck Miss Lestrade, she slammed the door shut and locked it, in order to save her own life. But I mean, we ain't the ones who done it. We ain't goof, we ain't. You've gotta believe us. I mean, come on, we'd never shot no one. That's blatantly untrue. I know for a fact that you would, because before my own eyes, you shot Mr. Herlock Sholmes. There is only one logical conclusion here. Mr. and Mr. Skulkin, you brothers had every opportunity to have been the true perpetrators of Mr. Winniebank's murder. That was amazing, Ryuno. All the members of the jury seem to be firmly on your side now. I know, first time ever, and probably the last. Well, I think you've done it. Surely they will have to give a verdict, if not... An admirable effort, my learned friend. What's this now? He's laughing? You find the situation amusing, Lord von Zieks. I myself find the defense argument most persuasive. I dare say, such chicanery is the bread and butter of the street performers in your provincial eastern nation, but such blatantly malicious conjuring tricks amount to nothing more than inexcusable pettifoggery here. The hypothesis you put forward so ostensibly, credibly cannot and will not stand. Because, you see, it contains a fatal flaw. Do you mean to tell me that you're unaware of your logic's failing? Might be an idea to explain this spoily conjuring trick or whatever it is to the troops on the ground, The fatal flaw in my learned friend's argument is really very simple to understand. Assuming you're not too dim-witted to count bullets. Boy, George, count bullets? Oh dear. You noticed then. What's everyone talking about? Naja, es wurde nur eine Kugel, also es war nur eine Kugel in Mr. Windybanks Waffe. Und die wurde verschossen. Und es wurde auch nur ein Schuss abgegeben von der Waffe, die die Skulkin-Brüder besitzen. Und der Schuss ging ja in Sherlock. Counsel. Yes, sir. Tell the court how many bullets were found at the scene of the crime. Two bullets. Correct. The first, that which hit the victim in the back, ending his life. And the second, that which struck the detective, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, on his arrival at the scene. Indeed. The defense presented a picture showing the damage caused by the second bullet earlier in the proceedings. The bullet which injured Mr. Holmes appears to have passed through his body to strike the colander. Your lordship's understanding is correct. Furthermore, we know there are two firearms involved in the incident. The revolver belonging to the victim, Mr. Windybank, and the Skulkin brothers' revolver. The evidence shows that a single bullet was fired from each gun. Yes, indeed it does. A single bullet from each. Now then, my learned friend. You yourself told the court only moments ago that these two brothers shot Mr. Sherlock Holmes right before your eyes. Yes, I did. Oh my goodness, I think you will find that if the single bullet that was fired from the brothers' gun hit Mr. Holmes, it means... Windybank not shot by the same gun, stop. Only one bullet, stop. Exactly. Yes, this Nipponese street performer presented an ostensibly credible argument. However, it was never anything more than a diversionary trick with no hope of standing up to scrutiny. Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging the dregs of this hallowed nectar into the public gallery. Lord von Zieks. But this court needs to open its eyes. The accused, Miss Gina Lestrade, is no ordinary little girl. Despite her young years, she can regrettably no longer be described as a juvenile, glaube ich, wird das ausgesprochen. No, the person in the dock is far from a law-abiding citizen. She has a past riddled with criminal conduct. The truth is, the accused broke into the pawnbrokery on the night in question with loathsome intent. As we can see beyond doubt in this print which depicts her threatening the victim with the murder weapon. And I have here in my possession one more piece of evidence the prosecution wishes to present. That disc. I will be taking that, whatever it is, of Mr. McGill, that's down to the yard. Thank you very much. No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is, mine. I'm sorry, miss, but anything belonging to McGill that has to be taken in as evidence now. Yes, that music box disc, McGill's music box disc. The very day before the hateful murder of Mr. Windybank, the accused attempted to make off with this article, which clearly doesn't belong to her, and with none of the subtlety of a pickpocket, I might add, but by brute force and brazen impudence. Make no mistake, any sympathy for the accused on account of her years is misguided and dangerous. There are no depths to which this girl would not stoop if pushed, no crime she would not commit. The court forgets the fact as its peril. I think it would be prudent to take this music box disc into evidence, counsel, as a grim testament to the defendant's... Lord von Zieks, Inspector Gregson? What? Yes, Inspector. We had a meeting yesterday at the yard with the prosecution service and, I think it was agreed that the disc wouldn't be used as evidence. What's this all about? Why is the inspector acting strangely? That's the first time he said anything to Van Zieks at all. I am unaware of any such meeting. But those were the instructions right from the top. The government bigwigs were insistent. Inspector, I'm the prosecutor, and I alone determine how to present my case. Your warning is noted. Thank you. The prosecution wishes to proceed with submitting this disc as evidence, my lord. Indeed, bailiff. Okay, a metal disc used to play music in a mechanical music box. On the reverse side is a note that reads for McGilded. The prosecution has established the accused's motive, opportunity, and basis of character. There is nothing more to add. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I await your informed decisions and rest my case. I don't believe it. I had the jury on my side for once for all of 5 minutes. Oh dear, it wasn't even for 5 minutes, Rono. Wonder if I might say something at this point. Proceed, Mr. Foreman. Been stumbling about in a bit of fog up to now, if truth be told, but all of a sudden, the answer's wholly obvious to me and my man. There's only one thing for it. Oh no. Very well, the court will hear from the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you will present your leanings as to the defendant's culpability.
Yuzai.
Yuzai. Yuzai.
Yuzai.
Yuzai.
We have a consensus among the jury, it seems. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. Sherlock Holmes. That's my line. I wrote that for Harley. How dare he use it against us? Don't worry, Iris. I don't think we're finished yet. There's still more to this case than we realize. There must be, because there's one thing that I'm absolutely certain of. Gina didn't shoot Mr. Windybank. That's beyond any doubt. Very well. We will proceed with the second summation examination of the day. Mr. Foreman, are you and the other jurors ready? Air Squadron is primed and ready for action, sir. Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have now determined the defendant to be guilty. Okay, das heißt, unsere nächste Summation Examination steht bevor. Und bevor wir damit allerdings anfangen, gibt es hier einen Cut. Ich bedanke mich ganz herzlich fürs Zusehen. Hoffe, ihr hattet Spaß. Und wenn ihr mögt, sehen wir uns sehr, sehr gerne im nächsten Part wieder. Bis dahin. Ciao.